Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Uspire Discovery webinar. But before we kick off, what I'd like you to do is to go into chat just to introduce yourself, but also to answer the following question for me, please. How would you rate your well-being at this moment on a 0 to 10 rating, where obviously 10 is the highest? How would you rate your well-being at the moment, 0 to 10? Give you a couple of moments for that. Okay, we've got 8s and 6, 7s and 8s. Okay, so far. Interesting. It's quite high. Very interesting. Okay, right. So whilst others are following suit, I'll just carry on again. And again, it's my pleasure to I'll be joined by Celynn Morin this morning, or this afternoon. She is a highly respected expert on well-being. I've worked with her many times, and I'm really looking forward to this session today. So please use chat as we go along if you've got any questions, and we will come to those. But at this moment in time, Celynn, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome to everyone. Bonjour. I see I've got a friend from Paris that's also joined us. You're all welcome from wherever you may be, Newcastle, Barcelona, Paris. And the thing about well-being is it is a way of being. So we can have all the knowledge in our head, but if we don't actually put these things into practice, they don't give us the ROI. It's the same as strategies in business. And right now, I know how many other things are on your to-do list. I don't know if anybody else, especially if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, is feeling this dissonance between the start of the new year and emails and meetings being set up and deadlines and strategies and planning for the first quarter. But at the same time, we're actually in the heart of winter. You know, the actual new year, according to the moon, which is the body that goes around the earth, that goes around the sun, is only on the 29th of January. So if you're feeling like you should be wintering rather than working, be compassionate with yourself, because it's natural for you to maybe be feeling a bit tired. Like I'm still needing 9 or 10 hours of sleep, which I don't need in spring or summer. And so I just wanted to mention that. And if you are feeling like there's a lot going on, and if you're not present, you can easily miss something. And my idea is to give you at least the opportunity for one strategy that you can take in the next 35 minutes or so that can help you to better manage your energy as we go through into winter, into the actual new year, into this incredible year ahead, which is bound to be life-changing if we look at the statistics and the trends. And there's nothing more important than being able to manage your well-being. Your wealth really comes from your health. I think a lot of us might know ourselves or people that have been in a position where they've given up their health to build wealth and then needed lots of wealth to buy back good health. And sometimes you can't buy back what you've lost. So if you're able to, close some tabs, sit back, take your hands off your keyboard, maybe turn your phone upside down and push it out of reach, and gift yourself this opportunity, this little pocket of time. Because if you leave with one way that you could enhance your well-being or your score, by the way, I'm aligned with Claire. I'm a solid 9-2 at the moment. Besides this need to be more inward facing, I'm feeling really, really good. But some of us are not potentially. And even if we're a 9, what would it look like to be a 9.5 or a 10? And if you can leave with that strategy, that really is priceless. So I also would like this. I mean, I've come prepared. I'm going to talk for about half an hour or so, and then allow space for questions and shared wisdom. So feel free to contribute in the chat. It's a way of you being engaged. and making this less of a monologue and a collective. Because the more I do this work, I've been doing this for a long time. I qualified as a dietitian 25 years ago, and then moved into corporate well-being 14 years ago. And this is my aliveness. This is what I love to do, is being in front of a group of forward-thinking, innovative business leaders to help you look after yourself better, because by virtue of how you lead, you influence so many others. But it's my way of creating impact, because if you can take this into your businesses and not just show up as a better leader, but potentially share it with team members and employees, now more than ever, we need agile, resilient, happy, engaged businesses that are able to keep up with the amount of change. You know, there's lots of tech and AI. My version of AI is authentic intimacy. How do you connect with yourself properly so that you can then connect with not only your families and loved ones and friends, but your teammates, the people around you, and really build businesses that can hopefully create a better earth. So to do that, and so that you don't just have to watch me, I've got a few slides. So I'm going to ask Peter in a moment if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see performance chemistry as a slide. Amazing. So performance chemistry is around looking at the physiology or the chemistry in your body that can support your overall performance. Because your ability to lead and to show up in life as a parent, a community member, a sister, a friend, is dependent on your chemistry and your physiology. And so today, or the work I do with leaders and managers and workplace teams, is to help everybody, regardless of who they are and what role they have, own the title CEO. And for me, that stands for Chief Energy Officer. Because if you can manage your energy on demand, I think that's one of the superpowers that we need, not only in business, but in life today. Because there's so much that drains our energy, mentally, emotionally, physically. Somebody used those dimensions actually when they did the check-in. And so to be able to renew that energy when you need it is incredibly, life-changing, right? And why well-being is important, not just for energy, but it gives us options. You know, there's this wonderful proverb: a healthy person has 1,000 wishes, a sick person has just one. And I'm sure you've been in that position where you've been sick. Maybe you've had a really bad headache, a backache. Maybe you've had something really serious, COVID, been in an accident. And all you can think about is getting well so that you can get back to your life. And so today's also a reminder that when we have good health, we should make the most of that and not always just take it for granted. Because when we have health and energy, we can move mountains. It feels like we can do anything. However, when we don't, it can feel like everything becomes an insurmountable mountain. So this time that we have together, I would like it to feel as if we're lying together on a patch of grass in the afternoon sun. So I don't know if you can imagine that. This was a photo taken on my birthday. I went for a long walk in the south of Wales, and it was a beautiful day. And it reminds me of, I really enjoy poetry because it helps me understand and process my emotions when my cognitive mind can't. So as one of my mental health strategies, I use poetry for that. And one of my favorite pieces is from a poet called Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. So this opportunity, it's as if we are sitting on a warm patch of grass together, and you're going to have an opportunity, if you choose to be present and not too distracted, to really think about your own well-being and how you can possibly help, because stress takes us out of the sensation of being relaxing in the sun. You know, stress, we can't stop it. There's so many things that are coming at us that are uncontrollable. Also, the way we respond to stress is involuntary. So the stress response, I know you've heard about it, the fight or flight response happens on a subconscious level all day long, just about. And so we need to learn how to reduce the impact of that because it drains our energy. And this relaxation takes practice. So what I'd like to do is start with a quick technique with you right now, because like I said at the start, well-being is a way of being. It's not just about understanding the theory, it's about actually trying things. So what I invite you to do is bring your awareness to the center of your chest. So more or less, your heart will be beating just behind your sternum, slightly towards the left of your chest. And bring your awareness to that part of your body. And if you'd like to, if you're able to, if it's safe for you to do so, to soften your gaze, look down, perhaps even allow your eyelids to close for a moment. And notice how your chest slightly moves when you take your next in-breath. So as you inhale, your chest will likely move up. And then as you exhale, it'll deflate. And because our breathing is one of the first places that we can notice the stress response, what would it be like, regardless of how you may be feeling in this moment, you may be feeling quite relaxed. But what if on your next inhale, you allowed yourself to take in more oxygen, more air, breathing deeper, using not just your chest, maybe your lower belly and the lower part of your body, because our lungs go all the way down to the bottom of our last rib. So as you breathe in a little bit more oxygen and air. And as you breathe out, give yourself permission to relax any tension you may be holding around your shoulders and your neck and your jaw. We carry a lot of tension in our face and our upper body. And sometimes just bringing our awareness to this part of our body can help create some ease. And this will save you energy in the long run. It also, if you do this one more time before opening your eyes, if they are closed, take in a deep breath. Breathing in through your nose if you're able to do so and it's comfortable, and then exhaling through your mouth as long and as slow as possible, letting your shoulders drop towards the ground. Your jaw, your tongue relax a little, giving your face permission to relax. And then slowly opening your eyes if they were closed and letting the light back in. And notice how you feel after taking 1 minute. That was about 60 seconds or so, bringing your awareness to your breath, taking in a little deeper inhale. You might feel a little lightheaded. That's great. That's probably a sign that you need more oxygen. And giving your body permission to relax. Because when we hold tension, it can cause us to feel very wired, even though we're tired at the end of the day. And that impacts our sleep. And one of the biggest trends we're seeing in well-being at the moment is poor sleep, insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night, poor sleep quality. So thank you, Mark, for sharing that you feel calmer mentally for sure. And you didn't even leave your desk. So what you just did, if you chose to engage in that exercise, you also shifted your internal chemistry. You probably have released a bit of oxytocin and some serotonin and dopamine and lowered your blood pressure. If you kept taking slow, deep breaths, you would maybe even have released some nitric oxide. And all that does is fire up the prefrontal cortex of the brain and tells the body to relax, and the back of the brain that you're not in a panic, which is really helpful. Because when we panic, we make mistakes, we don't breathe properly, we contract our muscles, our digestion shuts down, and we get tired a lot faster. So I hope that you are using breathing as one of your tools because it's free of charge and available all the time. It also impacts all the aspects of our well-being. So when we breathe deeply, we not only reduce the stress response, but we help relax and reduce the impact of cortisol and adrenaline. We help to regulate our emotions so stress doesn't impact us as much. As Mark just said, we can feel calmer and also more creative and problem solve. And then that leaves us the ability to think about contribution and meaning and giving back. And what am I doing as a leader? And where's my business actually going? And this is not woo-woo stuff anymore. You know, we can measure this. So one piece of research that substantiates what you've just experienced, if you did that exercise, Sean Achor, who's a professor at Harvard, and he's done a TED Talk and written a few books. One is called The Happiness Advantage. And his latest research shows that when we take our hands off the keyboard and we go inward and slowly breathe he based it on 2 minutes. So if you do 2 minutes of slow, conscious breathing, you not only benefit yourself, but you actually help to regulate the nervous systems around you. So you can reduce the cortisol levels of your colleagues. So that's based on heart math and heart coherence and the fact that we have an electromagnetic field around us. Basically, the stuff that's often common sense, which is not common knowledge, really does play a role in helping us feel better and show up at our best. So that was one of the tools that I wanted to start with before we go into a framework that I'm going to take you through really quickly so we can get a helicopter view of what I feel is important around well-being. Now, well-being is a vast topic. And I asked, Peter asked at the start of the call, what would you score yourself around well-being? By the end of our time together, you're going to have a score on my assessment that I use for well-being, which is called the Wellculator. And the Wellculator takes a look at 10 areas that impact our well-being, specifically our physical well-being, which is where the foundation of our well-being sits. I'm sure you'll agree, if you are sleep deprived, maybe you're dehydrated because you've had no water and you've just had maybe 2 or 3 cups of coffee, and you have a headache, you're not going to show up at your best physically and definitely not emotionally and let alone mentally. So making sure that we're doing the fundamentals right around our physical well-being is really important. And one of the key things around our physical well-being is managing our sleep, managing our ability to get rest. And a framework that I like to use that takes us into the realm of getting strategic rest as well as sleep, because to sleep well, we need to learn how to rest the nervous system well in the day. Otherwise, it's like you want to run a marathon, but you do no training. It's going to be, maybe unless you're exceptionally gifted, it's going to be a struggle. And many of us, we arrive in bed, we've been busy from the moment we open our eyes right through to before we close our eyes. Often the first thing we say hello to and the last thing we say hello to is not the person in bed with us, it's our devices. And then we expect to get a good night's rest. So I like to use the seasons. And the fact, myself and Peter and Chris, we were talking about how cold it is in the UK. I don't know if anybody else is in the UK, but it's pretty chilly. Winter is the season where things go slow, the nights are long and dark and cold, and we hibernate. Well, animals at least hibernate. And before that, we have the season of autumn or the fall, where there's this transition before going into winter. And that's very important for us too. What is your transition before you get into bed and you want to put your head on the pillow and hibernate, so to speak? And then we have the season of summer, which is where generally most of us have got lots of energy and life is in full swing and we've got harvests and blossomings going on and business is thriving. And even in that season, there are ways to incorporate micro strategic rests so that you do your best work. And I'm going to share some of those. And then there's spring, right? So spring is the start of your day. When you wake up in the morning, how do you start your day? So let's start at the beginning. When you woke up this morning, I'm curious, what happened in the hour after your alarm went off, or maybe the neighbor woke you up, or the kids, or your partner? How did you engage with yourself and the world? Did you check in with yourself? Because a lot of us are checking in with our phones while we're actually still in bed. We haven't even gone to the toilet. And by doing that, we don't give ourselves a chance to connect with how we honestly feel. You could wake up feeling fantastic, but you see a message or you see some news, and then that shifts how you show up, especially as a leader in business. And that can be draining because then we are not in our integrity or authentic way of being. And once we start our day as leaders, there'll be lots of fires for us to put out, and we will need to wear masks, of course, and show up in a certain way. But that moment when you wake up in the morning is incredibly precious. The neuroscience shows and tells us that a sleeping brain doesn't just wake up like a light switch. It takes time, a bit like the sunrise. So this morning, I was actually fortunate to watch the sunrise because there were no clouds where I live. And I got up early enough and I chose to sit down and watch it. And it slowly came up the horizon. And when you wake up, your brain has been in a very different place to where it is now. So I'm going to show you a graph. It just gives you an idea of different brainwave activity. So right now, we're all in beta brainwave, which is that top line. So we're awake, we're alert, you're paying attention, you might be doing more than one thing at once. However, when you were sleeping last night, you were right at the bottom, delta brainwave. You were having dreams. Those are really important. We know that REM sleep and the cycles that we go through sleep keep us sane, literally. They stop us from going crazy. That's why sleep deprivation is often used as a form of torture. And it reconciles our memory, and it helps with emotional regulation, and all kinds of healing takes place when you sleep. In fact, we are very, very busy when we sleep. It's not a waste of time. I used to feel that in the past until I really understood the gift that sleep brings us. And when you're waking up, just like the sun is rising above the horizon, you're in between what we call alpha, from theta to beta brainwave. And that alpha brainwave is the most creative space that we can be in. So I hope that you'll potentially think about, how can I spend more time this year activating alpha brainwave, because it helps me to tap into my intuition and creative thinking. I'm sure you've had the experience where you've been in the shower, or you've been cooking or walking the dog, and you've problem solved. You've thought of something that you hadn't thought about for ages. And that's because you were potentially in alpha brainwave. Meditations and certain mindfulness and activities like walking in nature can take us into alpha brainwave. And a lot of gurus in the well-being trends are saying that this coming decade of well-being, so the next few years, is all about frequency medicine. And what that means is, can you manage your own frequency? Because we are an electromagnetic being. So your brain waves produce a current that we can measure. So does your heart. And that's why I thought I would spend time highlighting these two things, because there's a lot in the Wellculator, and we're not going to get to everything today. But if you leave with curiosity around, how can I harness my brain better and my heart, knowing that I can shift my frequency, and that can help me produce better chemistry, so I show up better as a leader, and I reduce the impact of stress. There are other benefits too, but I don't want to go into that today. So when you wake up in the morning, before you look at your phone, because often our phones take us directly into beta brainwave, can you take a few deep breaths, connect with yourself, maybe, if possible, get outside. If it's too freezing to do that, stand at a window and look and allow some natural light into your eyes. Very important. There's so much research to show that natural light coming through the retina of the eyes activates parts of the brain that helps you to feel alert and awake in a positive sense. Not the same as looking at your screen and going into WhatsApps and social media and emails. There will be time for that once you get into the season of summer, which we all will. Before we know it, we're at our desks like you are now. We've potentially commuted to the office, and we've dropped off kids at school, and we're sitting at our desks. And when we're at our desks and engaged with a lot of demands and cognitive thinking, it's very easy for us to get contracted in our posture and to restrict our breathing. So when I was in Japan last year, I was reminded, because I walked along a trail where we went to many temples, and we met many Zen teachers. And the most important thing around feeling Zen, which is calm, feeling calm, is your posture and your breathing. So how is your breathing? I know that a few moments ago, I invited you to bring your awareness to your breath, but what has happened to it since then? And could you, as you take in a deep breath, so on your next inhale, could you think to yourself, strong back? So breathe in and elevate your posture in a comfortable way. I don't want you to feel all stiff and upright and uncomfortable, but elongate your posture, because we often collapse at our desks. We also have a thing called email apnea. I'm sure you've heard of sleep apnea. So sleep apnea happens when at night you maybe snore, or for whatever reason you don't breathe properly, and that increases your rate of mortality. Not a good thing. But email apnea is, we have measured that people at their desk in front of their screens can sometimes hold their breath for up to 30 seconds at a time, because we're so contracted around the chest. So focusing on your breath every now and again and lifting your posture. Try this now. Don't take my word for anything. In fact, don't ever believe anybody out there around well-being advice. Always put it into practice and let your body, because your body knows more than anybody else knows about what you need. Your body will show you and tell you, yeah, this works, or no, that's not quite the right thing for me. So as you breathe in, think strong back. And as you exhale, soft front. Strong back, soft front. I use this all the time because when I present, I get nervous, and stress can sometimes really make me feel tense. And that's not a good thing for a speaker or for anybody. And when I allow myself to breathe in and think strong back, and to breathe out and think soft front, so reduce the tension in my face and my jaw, let my shoulders drop towards the ground, the effect is almost instant. I feel timeless. It's incredible. So I invite you perhaps to try that as we continue. Another technique when you're at your desk, so if you are looking at your screen now, because you're watching me, or maybe you're being cheeky and looking at some emails and things, this is a guideline that can help you manage your energy. So every 20 minutes, we should look away from our screen. So about 20 meters or 20 feet. Look away from your screen. Like, don't look at me for the next 20 seconds. So look away, and you can keep listening, but it's really good to help with eye strain, but also it changes your perspective, and that shifts your neurochemistry. So when we're very stressed, we can get very focused, like on the proposal that we're working on, and then we can hit send without maybe picking up some mistakes, or the tone of voice wasn't quite right. But by looking away from our screen for a few seconds, and we do that every 20 minutes or so, it can help a lot with giving you perspective. And then I do hope that you will allow yourself to stand and move regularly. None of us should be sitting for longer than an hour at a time. That means that we should have the ability to sit or stand and work. So investing in a simple little, either a table or a lever beneath your computer that can help lift it up. And if you have phone calls, can you take them off camera and actually walk and talk, or just stand and talk? Because the way you hold your body and your posture and your embodiment has a direct impact on your internal state and how people perceive you. I won't go into the science around that, but we all know, if you're going to go for an interview and you sit upright, you look more confident compared to if you're slouching and covering your face. So all this stuff is grounded in science. And then I do hope that you will act like the French and take a break at lunch, because a lot of us don't. We end up working through, and we eat at our desks, and we don't take a break. And no professional athlete will train for 8 or 10 hours without taking a break. And as corporate workplace athletes, we should strategically refuel in the middle of our day. Whether you choose to have food or not, even if you stop for 5 minutes of contemplation and thinking, not looking at your phone, coming back to your desk after taking a break like that can revolutionize your afternoons. So I hope this year that as leaders, you will embody this, not just for yourself, but maybe starting meetings with a 1-minute breathing exercise, or always stopping a meeting with a 5-minute body break. I think we need to, the more we go into AI and tech age, the more we need to remember that we are not machines. And I wanted to mention, if you are not getting enough sleep, there are very particular meditation protocols that you can use that can give your brain the kind of rest as if you've had a power nap. So I don't know if anybody on the call, if you do, perhaps you can just pop a yes into the chat. Do you use strategies like NSDR? NSDR stands for non-sleep deep rest. And there's lots available on YouTube, and I've even got one that I can share with you if you're interested. And it takes you through a relaxation that in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it feels as if you've had a power nap. So these kind of things can be helpful if you're not getting enough sleep, for instance, or if you're waking up feeling tired. It might be easier to find 10 minutes in your afternoon or sometime in your day, rather than maybe looking for an extra hour to get to bed. And then at the end of your day, just like we have the season of autumn, there needs to be a transition into the evening. And how are you transitioning? This requires really strong boundaries, because as leaders, in the pace of change that we find ourselves working and living, there's always work to do. So we need to agree that we've done enough, even though we haven't done everything. And if we don't, we will lead ourselves to exhaustion, which is why a lot of my clients have burnout. They're somewhere on that spectrum, mentally, emotionally, physically. And that's not okay. You know, giving up our health for wealth, we need to leverage them rather. And there may be pockets of time where we need to push really hard, but then we need to have boundaries and say, I've done enough. I need to do something for me. You know, we need to ask ourselves, perhaps I'll just pop this question into the chat and you can listen to your intuition and be curious about what comes up when you ask this. Where in your life can you use a high quality no? As we start this new year where we pulled into so many directions, we can't say yes to everything. So where could you potentially use a high quality no? And also, what about self-care and quality time with family and loved ones? You know, we all experience that in December. We often do. Maybe that's where you need to say a high quality yes. I say yes to time with my family, or yes to dinners together around a table with no phones around. I think we need to constantly negotiate these boundaries with ourselves, especially as leaders when we get pulled in so many directions. And so if you are interested in experimenting with some of these strategies to help you rest well, that take you away from devices, in the follow-up note, I'll share it with Peter, but on my website, I've got 2 free meditations. One of them is for the evening and one is for the morning. So I'd like to just mention that that's available. A lot of my clients have said my voice is soothing, which is why I recorded these. But you don't need to use mine, you know. I would like to suggest that you are curious about different techniques to help your nervous system regulate itself so that you can always find ways to stay calm, even when there's chaos around you. Is how can you do that? Because as a leader, people will look to you for that. And we're now going to change tack. So we're going to move from the topic of strategic rest onto how we feed ourselves. And then we're going to get to the Wellculator, and I'm going to get you to give yourself a score. I'm curious though, have you got some kind of strategy in how you feed yourself that is helping you to manage your energy levels? Because generally what I come across is, you know, we wake up in the morning and we get up and it's crazy. It's so busy, we forget to maybe eat breakfast. And we end up grabbing a cup of coffee and something on the go, and we have back-to-back meetings. So we have back-to-back cups of coffee. When we do stop for lunch, we don't really stop. We've still got our computers open or a phone in our hand, and we're distracted and eating on the go. And in the afternoon, we feel like a snack because our energy drops, maybe some more coffee. And by the time we get home and wind down with our partners, or we're on the sofa and the kids are in bed, we end up eating really late, maybe too much. And perhaps there's wine and chocolate that bookends that meal. So I don't know if you can resonate with any of what I've just shared, but a lot of my clients end up saying yes. I don't often think about how I feel. And if you want to be your own CEO, your own chief energy officer, then managing your energy source, which is your glucose, is absolutely important. But if you're not, it's going to skyrocket and plummet and decline and bounce and be all over the show, which is why we can often feel tired and wired at the end of the day. It's why we put on weight, especially around our waist. It's why we struggle to maybe manage aging process, and we start feeling aches and pains and inflammation increases, and we struggle to manage stress. So nutrition is a really, really important cornerstone. And I'm not going to go into nutrition lecture. I'm just going to end with, I would say, as a dietitian, I love food. I'm also French. I know I sound South African because I was born in South Africa, but my whole family, both my parents and everybody before them, are from the Champagne region in France, which is why for me, Champagne is part of my well-being strategy. But that's a conversation for another time, perhaps. But my top tip around how to eat well or how to nourish your body well is this. When you wake up, nourish yourself first, if possible, by getting natural light through your eyes or spending a bit of time outside. So before you have a cup of coffee, before you eat anything, use nature as a food group. Then if you do choose to eat breakfast and snacks and lunch, the difference in color from this slide to the previous one, I'm sure you can see there's a lot of color as opposed to just beige. So eating colorful foods, and by colorful foods, I don't mean sweets and crisps and those things, but nature's produce, so salads and vegetables, is so important because it feeds our gut. And your gut is called your second brain for a reason. It is an important part of your mental health and your immune system. And then another strategy to manage our energy when we're at our desks all day and often hyperventilating because we're in that stress response is to stay hydrated. So right now, have you got water in arm's reach, or have you just got an empty coffee cup? You know, it's so easy to get dehydrated, and then you have a headache and you feel tired and you feel hungry, but you're not, you're just dehydrated. So maybe this season, this is the one thing you could take from today is how can I focus on hydrating myself? And I find that this concept of eating like an artist, so bringing in lots of natural foods with lots of color, is one of the best ways to help your second brain, your gut. And that means you will support your actual brain and your whole system. I have lots of resources that I can share with you on, easy recipes and snack ideas and shopping lists that show you how you can get these foods in. And I'll share with you at the end of the session how you can get those or be in touch with me. What I'd like us to do, I just want to pause there. I heard somebody come off mute. No. All right. Well, I'd like to take the next 5 or 7 minutes so that we've got time at the end of the session to open up the floor for comments, suggestions, wisdom, questions, is to take us through the Wellculator, because we've dived into a few of the elements, not all of them. So I'm going to invite you to, as I go through the 10 areas of the Wellculator, I'm going to ask you to score yourself. And what you're going to do is give yourself 1 point if you answer yes. I do that most of the time. So most of the time means 80% of the time. So 5 days out of 7, or most of the time. That's a yes. And if you don't, it's a no. And some of the questions I'll guide you might be half a point and half a point, depending, because it's a double barrel question. So if you've got pen and paper handy, this might be an opportunity just to mark it down. Or if you're really concentrating and not getting distracted by other things, then you can just keep track of your score, because I'd love to know what your Wellculator score is today. Because it's a really practical tool that can show you where you're at and potentially where the areas are that you could focus on, because we can't do everything, but we can do something well. So that's the key that Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, speaks about. And also James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. I hope that everyone on this call is familiar with his work, because it's life-changing to know how to create habits that can actually stick into your lifestyle. And the one thing is to set yourself up for success by doing one thing at a time and making it easy and obvious and creating momentum around that. Because when we have momentum, we change our identity. We become someone that drinks water with their coffee. We become someone that naturally looks for colorful foods at each meal. We become someone that doesn't look at their phone for the first half an hour of being awake. And that's how you really become and embody well-being. So the first point on the Wellculator, are you a strategic refueler? So have you got a strategy that you put into place most of the time that helps to manage your energy? So this is about how you eat. Are you eating in a way that helps you to manage your glucose levels so that you feel that you are your own chief energy officer and you're getting the nutrients that you need? Yes or no? If it's yes, 1 point. If you're hesitating or you're not sure, it's kind of, then for today, give yourself no point. So I'd like it to be like a full body, 80% yes, if it's a yes, and that's 1 point. The second question is specifically around, are you eating like an artist? So do you eat enough colorful foods? And enough, by the way, is about, I'm going to put this in the chat, 8 to 10 servings of these foods per day. And a serving is about a fistful. If you were measuring all the fruits and vegetables and salads, we need about 400 grams a day based on the longevity studies to be healthy and well. So if that's a yes, and you're supporting your gut health in that way, another point. If it's a no, or I'm not sure, then no point for now. The third point on the Wellculator, let's just focus on, do you have a mindful lunch? So on most days of the week, especially when you're working, do you stop for 20 minutes? Because that's about how long it takes for your stomach to stretch and release pepsin that goes up to your appetite center in your brain and says, thanks, I've had enough to eat. So are you taking a 15 to 20-minute lunch away from your desk on most days of the week? If it's a yes, give yourself another point or a point. And if it's no, I don't really do that, I end up having snack accidents and I miss meals, then no point. Number 4, do you hydrate enough? So are you drinking enough water? Let's just focus on hydration. Enough is 1 glass. A glass is 250 mils per 10 kilograms that you weigh. I'm going to pop that into the chat. So are you having enough? And water can also be herbal teas. So if it's caffeine-free, sugar-free, alcohol-free, it's probably hydrating you. If it's fruit juice and regular coffees and teas, then it's not hydrating you. Number 5, do you check your health numbers? So in business, we know our business numbers strategically often a lot. We understand exactly where we are in terms of profits and margins and things, but are you checking your health numbers? And as a minimum, you should be looking at blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol. And if you're on this call and I saw the scores were already quite high at your self-perceived well-being score, I hope that you are doing deeper tests, like looking at your nutrient profile and maybe even your genetics and how you can use that to make proper lifestyle choices. You know, if you're taking a vitamin D supplement, for instance, or you're using magnesium, how do you know that it's working for you? And there's tests like Metabolomix is one of the golden standard tests. Let me put that into the chat. Sure, it's quite costly, you know, it's a few €100 or pounds, but you do it once every few years and you just know, okay, I'm taking the right stuff. It's really being absorbed and feeding my body. And if not, maybe I should change the brand of magnesium I'm taking because it's not helping me. What we don't measure, we can't really change, I think. Then number 6 is around sleep. Are you waking up feeling rested? Are you getting adequate rest? So most of the time, do you wake up feeling rested? If it's a yes, then 1 point. And do you have techniques that help you cultivate a positive mindset? So on a daily basis, even if this is just for a few minutes, do you practice gratitude? Maybe you do journaling. Maybe you spend time in prayer. Maybe you go out into nature. Maybe you have a mindfulness technique. Maybe you do heart coherence. Maybe you do yoga. There are so many ways, but are you on a daily basis using techniques that can help you regulate stress and specifically help keep your mental health more dialed into the positive? Because if not, we live in a world that wants us to come from a place of scarcity and fear and isolation. And I think now more than ever, even if you're like me, naturally positive, I work at staying positive. Otherwise, it can be very easy to get pulled into despair. And as leaders, we need to be able to role model that. The next 2 are around movement. So do you activate your body during your workday? So are you doing those things I suggested? Looking away from your screen, stretching every hour, taking a 20-minute lunch break, like practicing sitting and standing, walking meetings. So are you looking at your posture? Well, right now, how is your posture? How is your breath? Are you using these techniques to help you manage your state while you work? And are you doing about half an hour, so 30 minutes of exercise on average on most days of the week? That's what the World Health Organization says we need. And the older we get, the more important that that exercise includes not just cardio, but also weight-bearing exercise. So either, you know, through like CrossFit style training, using your body weight or actual weights, really important to sustain bone mass and lean muscle mass. And then the last point on the Wellculator is the one that we started with, because I asked you to become aware of your breath to help you regulate your response to stress. So are you aware of when you're in the stress response, and do you have techniques that you can use to regulate it? things like breathing, posture, those are very powerful techniques. And I'm curious, as we really quickly skim through the Wellculator, if you're happy to share in the chat, what is your Wellculator score today? What is your Wellculator score out of 10? So thank you. We have 4.5, 2, 1, 6, 3. So quite a range. 1, 4, 1.5. I'm sensing that a lot of these scores on the Wellculator are slightly, if not quite a bit lower than your initial check-in score. And that could be a piece of curiosity for yourself. We often perceive we are healthier because we have that confirmation type bias. So now that you have the Wellculator and you have, by the way, there's no right or wrong way with the Wellculator. Even if you have a score of 9, there's always something that you can do towards moving the dial towards your well-being. And so I'm curious, is there something small? Remember, James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, said, keep it really small. So is there a personal pledge you can make as we wrap up? And I'm going to hand over to Peter in a moment. Maybe you could pop into the chat. What feels like something you could do today? That's a tiny, tiny, tiny action, a tiny habit that you could start. What could it be? Could it be grabbing a glass of water straight after this call? Thank you, Virginie. Thank you. Daily gratitude. What a beautiful thing to choose. Good for you. Join the gym at lunchtime. I hope you'll go to the gym. A lot of people join in January. And because of those people, the gym is funded for the rest of the year. More watermark. Amazing. 20 minutes for lunch. This thing that you've just put into the chat is what I'd like you to use as your strategy to be your own CEO for the next few days and weeks. And if you would like to dive more into the Wellculator, it's available on my website. And if you like my message, please find me on LinkedIn, or thank you, Peter and Uspire, for bringing such an important topic. We can stay in touch. You can send me an email or a LinkedIn message if something's come up for you and you don't want to ask it maybe now, or you need to go. I'd like to be considered one of your wellbeing partners. It would be an honor. Peter, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, you certainly can, Celynn. And once again, thank you very, very much for quite an enlightening session. You've stolen my thunder because I was going to ask everyone to say what have they learned today and what actions will they take. And I think you've covered that. So thank you for that.
And I'm really enjoying the actions. There's such a variety in them. There's so much wisdom. And I just want to reinforce that only you know what's right for you. So well done on, going inward and choosing something from your intuition, your inner wisdom.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. So with that, are there any questions that we would like to ask Celynn at this moment in time? Don't appear to be.
I do want to share that because well-being is so vast and it can be overwhelming and so easy to ignore until something goes wrong. I do hope that we'll connect perhaps in LinkedIn or some other realm. And every now and again, if I can come through and remind you about this little pledge, please know that you're not alone. As leaders, I'm here to support you. And when we rise, we've heard that expression, when we rise the tide, all boats lift. And people are going to need leaders that are energized, agile, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So please don't give up your health while you're building wealth.
Yeah. And again, as a leader, if you're going to impose well-being on your team, then you've got to follow it yourself as well, which I think is so important. But again, thank you very much, Celynn. And with that, one other point to raise is that our next meeting on the Discovery webinars is the 14th of February with Peter Cooper leading through your people. But thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and hopefully we'll see each other again. So thank you for your time.